seems to be rallying. Treasuries also rising at the moment. Let's bring in David Dietze. He is President and Chief Investment Strategist at Point View Wealth Management, joining us from New Jersey today. David, we are finally getting that COVID-19 relief package that we've been talking about for months, but markets don't seem particularly enthusiastic. Is it because everything's been priced in already?
You're absolutely right. There was almost a yawn in the market on the news that Congress had passed this $900 billion fifth stimulus package. And I think the reason why, 2020 was all about COVID-19. And then the rebound has really been accelerated when we had news of the vaccine. And unfortunately, we got some very disheartening news coming out of the UK and a couple other countries. There is a mutation. And of course, at first people said, well, there's been a mutation, but there's no reason to believe that the current vaccines that have been developed won't work against it. But we did hear news from the leader of BioNTech, which is Pfizer's partner in the first vaccine that's been approved here in the United States, say, we really don't know. We think it will work, but it's going to take a couple weeks of testing. And then we might be able to make a variation to the vaccine to make it work. But of course, he talked about that taking 6 weeks. Well, will that have to be vetted by our FDA and other organizations around the world? So I think we're back to wondering, when will it be safe to get outside and engage in this economy? Meanwhile, of course, we've seen worldwide people are being locked down. And of course, those pictures of the trucks lining up to go from England to France amid a lockdown there between the two countries was enough to send investors into safe havens today.
All right, those are some good points, David. Add to that the fact that we might see further stimulus once President-elect Joe Biden comes to power. But do you think that is a possibility? How real is that? Depending on the Georgia Senate runoffs, I suppose, and whether he gains control of the Senate, more help for American households and businesses?
Well, I think it's desired by a lot of people. But remember, what passed last night, we needed that passed back in September. Why did it take this long? And of course, at one point, the Democrats were asking for another $3 trillion. It got whittled down to $900 billion. So I think it's not going to be automatic that there will be a further stimulus package, as you rightly point out. The control of the Senate is really up for grabs here with the runoff on the 2 Senate seats down in Georgia. So it's not a sure thing. But the reason for longer-term optimism, I think, is that if things get bad enough in terms of a lockdown, in terms of the vaccines not being potent against these new variations, you will see government, both the Federal Reserve in terms of monetary policy and fiscal stimulus in terms of Congress, come to the rescue. Because right now, our government has shown they will write blank checks to support this economy if things get bad enough. There do not seem to be any adverse effects to doing that. So that's one reason that there's still some sort of floor under this market.
Overnight, we also saw the NASDAQ Composite and the Russell 2000 setting record highs. What do you think going into 2021 is, what kind of year is it going to be for value or for growth?
So if you look at the performance this past year, the Russell 1000 growth is about up 38%, and the Russell 1000 value is down 2%. That 40% gap is as wide as it's ever been. So I think you can expect for some closure of that gap. Now, what would be the fundamental factors that would do that? One, of course, is if this economy does get back on its feet, I think you're going to see interest rates start to creep up. And of course, that's manna from heaven for financial institutions because they can get more interest on the money they have to loan. Insurance companies can get a better return on their reserves. And of course, if interest rates are going up, that's probably due to a whiff of inflation with all this deficit spending going on, all this money printing. And of course, that would be a tailwind for materials producers, for energy producers as well. So I think there's good reason to think that value might start to catch up with growth, and certainly investors should look to diversify in that direction.
David, we really appreciate your time with us today. David Dietze, Point View Wealth Management.